Yes. I wanted to ask you, I've noticed this year a lot of women are running for office. What do you make of this?
You know, it's a real continuation of 2018 when we saw record numbers of women running in Texas, but we've even surpassed that this year. I've read that statewide for state house races that 92 women entered the race. They didn't all make it through the primary, but of those, 68 were Democrats and there was 24 Republicans, which was a really sizable increase for Republicans from 2018.
And even for Congress, we've seen a lot of, female candidates as well. And so what do you think what's behind this move?
Well, always keep in mind that when Republicans run for Congress or other offices, it really is more of an organic movement. It is a woman deciding, we've got to push back on the Democratic agenda because, like it or not, Republicans don't like identity politics. There's not going to be a lot of partisan efforts to push Republican women to run. On the Democratic side, there are so many organizations, whether it is Emerge, many other, that motivate, train, and encourage women to run for office. And it's always been something that's important to the Democratic Party, and especially because they really pursue diversity. They really want candidates who represent the districts they live in. So I think that we have a surge in Republican candidates as well, just by saying, remember, women aren't monolith. They really do have different viewpoints, and that we really need to have both viewpoints represented at the ballot box.
And you spoke a little bit before that the Democrats still have an edge as far as the number of women running over Republicans. And you're saying basically you think it's just because there are more groups out there encouraging it?
Yes, I really believe that. There is, Texas has become really an epicenter to try to encourage more women of color, more Hispanics to run for office. And we've all talked about how at some point, just looking at the demographics, that Texas will become a Democratic state because of the number of Hispanic voters. But the thing is, are we going to actually vote on election day? And I think that all political analysts hate it when people go, well, it depends on the turnout, but I think it really does. And the Democrats have really just gone above and beyond encouraging women of color to run for office, and they back them. Where again, the Republicans really, it's more organic. It's more a woman waking up and going, I don't agree with the monolith of like all women must be one way.
And how do you think policy-wise, and even just the raw politics of it all, if there are more women in office, how does that change the dynamic, do you think, if at all?
Old saying that says, add women, change everything. And it's the same whether you are a Democrat or a Republican woman. We look at the world a little bit different. It was State Senator Jane Nelson who really promoted and made sure there was a center for women in politics and public policy at Texas Women's University. She really saw there was a need to promote and learn more about women. And I'm not necessarily convinced that a male state senator or representative would have pushed that. So Nelson may be a very conservative Republican, but she looks at the world in a little bit different way.
And then let me just ask you this, something that you and I have talked about before, and that is the fact that before it was, women would wait a little bit. They had their children, and then they decided to run for office. But now you're saying that's changing and more younger women are running for office.
Absolutely. We now see that about 40% of candidates running in Texas this year are women. That's a record amount. And that organizations across the board that care about women being elected to office are trying to get more younger women. To have a legislature, have Congress reflect what the community looks like and to not wait. And so there are many efforts nationwide to encourage women in their 20s, because men certainly start running for office, or whether it's local city council and then working their way up the ladder. And I think women always have taken a step back. The world is different now. We are equal. It is the 100th celebration of women's suffrage, and it is time for women to step up in the equal numbers of men to represent their communities.
And my final question to you, Nancy, is just about you've been involved in efforts to try to get more women to run. And I'm wondering, what has the reaction been? What are the younger women who you've reached out to collectively? What are they saying? How are they reacting?
I think that Sally Ride, who actually lived in Houston for a while, said you can't be what you don't see. And I think for too long, people saw elected officials as, you know, older white males. And now that we have more younger women in office, and whether it is Veronica Escobar, many other women in Congress now who are Democrats, people are going, wow, I can really do this. And so I don't think that, I think it's a great thing that we have women out there who are role models, because we didn't have those for a long time.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to say that I didn't ask you about?
I want to talk about, you know, just that at University of Texas, they have opened the LBJ Women's Campaign School. We had 50 women in our first round of cohorts. And now we've, of course, had to change this to virtual education. But it is a way where it's nonpartisan. It is practical, and we want to make sure women have the tools that they need to run. You know, there really is a confidence gap, and the studies show that it starts as early as age 6. So with a nonpartisan program, that we don't care about where you are on a policy, we just want to make sure you are prepared to lead. That we need more programs like that to really erase this confidence gap that, oh, we're just not smart enough, good enough, or, you know, will people like me if I run for office? And I think that's really critical. It is the most critical message that I give to women, and especially younger women who think about running for office.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. It really does. Nancy Bocskor, thank you so much for your time and your insight on this definitely emerging trend this year.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.
All right.